Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast or the content we're posting on the channel here. And definitely follow us on social media. I'm at Twitter and on Instagram. The links in the description. The names are on the screen here. And of course, we're available on Spotify, Google Podcasts or any other platform you can listen there. Finally, we're back after an absence for 2.5 months. I missed the Euros. I really regret it, but obviously for no fault of mine. Circumstances pretty much out of the control of my personal abilities that I missed the cover of the Euros. I missed most of the transfer window so far. The biggest stories of Messi moving to PSG, mostly Ronaldo moving to City, and the start of the season, but hopefully I'm back now, and I'll try my best to keep the track going pretty well. Of course, I'm not gonna, make it pretty long in the intro here. I'm just gonna, just explain myself why. Again, for no fault of mine, reasons related to COVID. Then, of course, I had some personal problems during the summer, so I couldn't really be, available for the channel on a daily basis or on any basis even. As you saw, for 2.5 months, I didn't post anything. And speaking of not posting anything, I returned back with a reaction to the Champions League draw. You can check that out on the channel. Of course, I posted that yesterday. Enough of that. Let's get straight into the business. And we're back for a weekend preview. Of course, we're going to kick things off with the Premier League, and it's a big weekend in the Premier League. There's some tasty matches in Game Week 3. Man City facing Arsenal, kicking off things on Saturday. Aston Villa, Brentford, Brighton, Everton, Newcastle, Southampton, Norwich, Leicester, West Ham, Crystal Palace, and the bookend of the day on Saturday is Liverpool versus Chelsea. Then you have Burnley, Leeds, Spurs, Watford, and Wolves, Man United on Sunday. Of course, no games on Monday, since in the midweek it will be the international break. And of course, there's a whole situation about the Premier League not allowing their players to travel. Some teams, or some national teams, are not going to be having the players that they have in the Premier League. Egypt, for example, is not going to have Mo Salah for the international break and the World Cup qualifiers in early September. Enough of that, let's get into the real business, the real meaty matches, and certainly the two biggest matches are both on Saturday on this weekend. It is Manchester City versus Arsenal, kicking things off in Game Week 3 at the Etihad. And from all of it, it looks like doom and gloom for Arsenal. After the start of the season, they had pretty horrendous couple of matches against Brentford and against Chelsea in particular, where they had like a disastrous performance. I mean, it's not like we can't blame on the loss against Brentford and we should blame him against Chelsea, but definitely one of them, or one of the performances, is more horrendous than the other. I personally didn't watch a lot of the game against Brentford, but I definitely watched the game against Chelsea, and I can tell you that even if I didn't watch the game against Brentford, I would still think that the Chelsea game is more horrendous because it was in front of their own fans. And, Chelsea bringing on Lukaku, who completely bulldozed Pablo Mari and Rob Holding in the back. It was weird. It was weird. It was really weird to watch, and it was probably, perversely hilarious to see Pablo Mari trying to stop Lukaku by being physical to him, which doesn't work. If you really took any notice from the SerieA season last time out, it's that you don't stop Lukaku by being physical, by being close to him. You stop him by giving him space and then positioning yourself in the right place. We saw that happen for Chelsea against Liverpool or not. Speaking of Arsenal still, it looks like Mikel Arteta might be in a doom and gloom, really. The victory against West Bromwich in the Carabao Cup in the midweek may be uplifting a little bit, but definitely not to the point where it can turn around the season of Arsenal if they lose against City. Now, I'm not going to say they have a big chance against City, because they don't, but definitely I prefer to see a better version of Arsenal in this game. Aubameyang back to scoring in the game against West Brom, dropped them 6-0. The good result, again, uplifting in a way, but definitely when you look ahead and see that Man City are the team you're going to be facing on the weekend, it doesn't really seem that good of a sign anyway. Man City, on the other hand, having Grealish, after, adding Grealish to that brilliant squad, Grealish getting on the score sheet against Norwich for the first time, and potentially in the next couple of hours, as I'm recording this and I'm saying these words, that Cristiano Ronaldo might join them and be under the tutelage of Guardiola, which is just mind-blowing on its own right. It definitely looks like Man City have the the definite advantage. There's just no two ways about it. Man City have the advantage in this game. There's just no two ways about it. They look like the stronger team. They feel like the stronger team. They should be demolishing Arsenal, to be fair. They should be demolishing Arsenal. There should be no two ways about it. Although the recent history might show us that they could have demolished Arsenal on a couple of previous occasions, but they didn't. Not so far ago in last year, they lost the FA Cup against Arsenal, and they were eliminated in the semi-final against Arsenal in a pretty shambolic performance. But it looks like Man City from there are different for Man City that we see in now, more pragmatic, maybe more up to beat, I would say, with the some of the flaws that they have. Guardiola certainly matured over the last season or so, not to the point where he could win the Champions League, but he definitely improved his stock, improved his tactical resilience and tactical solutions, and he can find solutions elsewhere. Aside from the usual kind of drill sergeant method that he usually uses, pressing high, and City should be always going forward and exposing themselves on the back. He accepted, I think, over the course of the last season that he should be a little bit calm, a little bit relaxed, laid back maybe at a certain point, play up to the tempo of the games. We saw that in the Champions League in particular. But again, that doesn't excuse him against Arsenal, against this, not exactly reinforced Arsenal in the break in the transfer window. They didn't do much, aside from signing Ben White and a couple of others. Not really having a big signing that would improve them. Martin Odegaard, yes, but you think is going to be a game-changing signing for them? I don't really know. And in front of a side that is just bolstering themselves to the best players, and they're going to be adding Cristiano Ronaldo potentially. It's going to be insane. Obviously, Ronaldo is not going to be available against them if he eventually signs today. But obviously, looking forward and looking at the season, you can't write out City out of the title challenge if they bring CR7 on their side. As far as the game itself, again, I insist that City should have the upper hand. They should demolish Arsenal. But again, the game and the reality of the game could be different. Arteta is in hard water. The victory against West Brom might just give him a little bit of a space for manoeuvre, but if a loss against City and a horrendous loss, which is pretty much expected really by the standards that Arsenal set for the first game weeks, I think it's going to be maybe bust for Arteta. Maybe his time is going to be over soon. And even that is going to be opening another can of worms on the Arsenal board, because who's going to be the manager crazy enough, I would say, or, I don't know, without any kind of logic in his mind to accept the Arsenal job at this moment, at this stage in Arsenal's history. The second game, or the second big game on the week, is going to be Liverpool versus Chelsea at Anfield, and that is a clash. Simply unmissable clash, really. If you love the Premier League, you shouldn't be missing Liverpool versus Chelsea on Saturday at Anfield Road. You look at how Chelsea have been playing for the first game weeks. You look at Liverpool, how they've been playing the first game weeks. Van Dijk returning, getting a little bit better, I would say. Still have some flaws in them from last season. They carried on some of the defensive, I would say, complacency they somewhat have. It didn't cost them exactly goals. They still have a couple of clean sheets in the Premier League to start. Chelsea as well, they have a couple of clean sheets to start, but definitely, I would say, a better overall performance. After the end of the season that they had, winning the Champions League, winning the Super Cup, also the bunch of individual awards they had just about yesterday in UEFA, best goalkeeper, best midfielder, best player, best coach. It looks like Chelsea on a really good road and rolling pretty well. Also, the group they have in the Champions League with Juventus, Zenit and Malmo is pretty easy if you count out Juventus. Out of that, I think even Juventus, they have they have the advantage over Juventus in that group, I would say. A big game waiting. Obviously, the big duel is going to be Lukaku versus Van Dijk. Everybody's expecting that. I personally took out both teams of my fantasy team. I don't want myself to lose points in any way. I don't want a losing bet in any way, because I don't know why I expect both of them to score, albeit the game is at Anfield. With a full house, it definitely is going to feel different. Liverpool, again, they should be feeling better with the start of the season they had. Obviously, if they avoid injuries, if they avoid what happened last season, if they avoid fitness issues, which, pretty much were caused by the hectic schedule that the season was having and the amount of international breaks, the amount of matches that were played in short space time. But, that's what the main reason for their fitness issues was, and for the injuries that they had accordingly towards the end of the season, where they just about saved the 4th place for themselves. Chelsea, on the other hand, full squad, full fitness, almost no problems, and again, flying high individually, flying high as a team, feeling really well. Adding Lukaku to the firepower is only going to improve them, and you expect him to score a bunch of goals this season, you expect him to have a good tally, so it's going to be an unmissable clash, and definitely the kind of Premier League clash of the Titans that you don't want to miss on your TV. It's a big game. I mean, elsewhere in the card of the Premier League this weekend, you have Wolves United, that's a decent one as well. You have Newcastle Southampton, that should be a decent one as well. Overall, the focus and the eyes all are going to be on both games on Saturday. The bookends, the kickoff in the afternoon between City and Arsenal at Etihad, and then the late afternoon start with Liverpool versus Chelsea at the Anfield. From the Premier League, we're moving on to Spain, a league that has taken a big hit over the last couple of weeks, of course, and the last couple of months, really, with the exit of the likes of Ramos and Messi from it. And at the start of it, the first couple of game weeks and the start of it, really all the questions and all the focus was how Real Madrid are going to be reacting without Ramos, how Barcelona are going to be reacting without Messi, and of course, is Atletico Madrid going to capitalise on both of those teams' weaknesses and both of those teams' wobbly starts, I would assume, for the season, and try and get a bit of advantage as early as possible. In fact, it played out the way it was. It played out probably just like that. Barcelona had a pretty shaky start, first couple of games. The first game against Sociedad was decent, albeit with a really terrifying ending for the Barcelona fans, where they almost lost their advantage. Then you have the second game against Bilbao, which was even worse, and somehow Barcelona managed to sneak a draw out of that game, to be fair. It wasn't exactly pleasing watch for the Barcelona fans. Then you have Real Madrid starting the same way. A win against Alaves that was not exactly entirely convincing. Then you have a draw against Levante, which was just unbelievable in the way it happened, because Real Madrid were leading, then they lost the lead, then they lost the lead 3-1, then they managed to return in the game and end up 3-3. It was really, really, it was a really crazy game. There was all sorts of craziness in that. Vinicius Jr. becoming Ronaldinho for one night and scoring a brace to help Real Madrid come back with 1 point from Ciudad de Valencia. Before we get any further, these are the games for the week. On Friday, it's Mallorca versus Espanyol, Valencia versus Deportivo Alaves, both on Friday. On Saturday, Celta Vigo versus Athletic Bilbao. That is a tasty one as well. By La Liga standards, Real Sociedad versus Levante, Elche Sevilla. And of course, the big game on Saturday, it's Real Betis versus Real Madrid. Not exactly starting great, Real Betis. 2 draws out of the first 2 games, not something that you would, be happy with heading into a game against Real Madrid. Barcelona Getafe kick off things on Sunday. Cadiz Osasuna, Rayo Vallecano versus Granada, and Atletico Madrid versus Villarreal, the Liga champions versus Europa League champions. This should be also a tasty one as well. So back to what I was saying. The focus is going to be on those 3, on Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. Real Madrid, amongst the hunt for Mbappe, which apparently is not a PR stunt, and apparently it's going for real. Mbappe is going to be in Real Madrid, apparently. The bid was 170 million euros plus 10 million euros as a bonus, and it looks like PSG budged and accepted the deal because they need the money from Mbappe. Mbappe is keen on leaving the team to Real Madrid, didn't want to renew his contract, didn't have any intentions to do so, so it looks like Real Madrid is going to be the destination for him before the end of this transfer window. Barcelona, the loss of the most important guy probably in their history, at least in the last 20 years or so. Lionel Messi, the guy that scored near 700 goals for them, the top scorer in their history, the top player in the history of the most matches, the player who brought them a bunch of trophies, who really, he's almost half of Barcelona's history is with Messi on his own. If you look at it this way, I mean, the tenure that he had from 2004 back to 2021, the tenure that he had over the last 17 years is just incredible. He amassed all sorts of individual and collective trophies for his club. The question is, of course, always how Barcelona are going to be reacting without Messi, and for the first game against Sociedad, they looked fine. They looked decent, which is something you cannot really say about Barcelona over the last couple of years, but they looked really good. They looked collectively well. Memphis Depay was hitting on all cylinders. Antoine Griezmann was enjoying life a little bit, playing a little bit with more freedom in the middle. Then you have Martin Braithwaite also, who transformed himself pretty much to a saviour for Barcelona at a certain point. And, overall, Barcelona changed their tactics in some sort of way. I mean, it was weird for them to revert to a 4-3-3 again, which exposed their defensive frailties, already conceding 3 goals in a couple of games. Also, Real Madrid probably had the same problem. They conceded 4 in 2 games. But definitely, they have more time to improve. I mean, the excuse is there. It's a transitional season for Barcelona without Messi. Messi was a lot of power, was a lot of importance into that club, and definitely they don't want to, to rush the transition without him. They're not looking for the next Messi, but they're trying to do their best without someone who they always look forward to, someone who can provide them solutions at any given time. The last of the big three is Atletico Madrid, of course, facing Villarreal. They had a terrific start of the season, a couple of wins on their record, not exactly the worst thing to start with. It's kind of decent sign for Atletico Madrid to start that way. People expecting them to win La Liga again. Really, they don't see Atletico. They don't see Real Madrid or Barcelona adding anything else to their arsenal. Atletico Madrid, with the signings that they had, you have Mateus Acuna. They acquired Rodrigo de Paul, already an assist on his first day of the job in Atletico Madrid. He's definitely looking like the kind of guy that Atletico Madrid would be, would build a team around, really, and Diego Simeone certainly would know how to take the best out of Rodrigo de Paul. So overall, it's definitely a weird season for La Liga again. Maybe the interest is going to wane down in La Liga. Obviously, more interest in Ligue 1 in Messi. I'm not going to change my interest, though, because of that personally. But definitely, overall, it's going to be a bad season. Maybe El Clasico in particular, we'll see how that is going to reflect on El Clasico, how it's going to reflect on La Liga overall. But definitely, the focus is going to be on the big three, how they're going to be reacting, the post-Messi, the post-Ramos for Real Madrid, the post-Messi for Barcelona probably is the more important, because for Real Madrid, they've been there for quite a while without Ronaldo since 2018, but definitely still a bit interesting in La Liga this season. I mean, life goes on, and people should still watch La Liga and still be interested in Barcelona, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, as I certainly do. From Spain, we move to Italy now, and to SerieA, another league that is potentially going to take another huge hit in its interest already, with no TV deal rights in the Middle East and North Africa. That's already a problem on its own. And you add to that potential exit for Cristiano Ronaldo from Juventus towards Manchester City, and you have a recipe for lack of interest, I would say, at the very, very best. Carelessness somehow from fans about SerieA. Lukaku leaving Inter Milan, Hakimi leaving Inter Milan as well. You have, some of the stars even Rodrigo de Paul was one of the sort of marketing faces of the SerieA for last season, because of his individual performances at Udinese. He left the club. It's kind of, this big shift, big hit for the SerieA this season. And obviously, people are not exactly caring already about SerieA, and if Ronaldo is leaving, that is like going to be probably the blow in the final nail in the coffin of SerieA after the last couple of years, where people were more interested with Ronaldo being there, Lukaku being there. It was a pretty lucrative kind of destination, SerieA, for people who want to watch exciting football. Last season, SerieA was pretty great, pretty exciting. Matches were awesome. But this season is going to be a whole different. Anyway, let's move on. And round 2, of course, of action in SerieA kicks off this weekend. On Friday, it will be Udinese versus Venezia and Hellas Verona versus Inter. Udinese, of course, started really well, drawing against Juventus. They could have really won, but definitely, but they dropped the ball in the end. Inter Milan started really well by beating Genoa 4-0, where we thought, without Lukaku, without Hakimi, how they're going to be looking. They look decent. Also, the additions that they have with Denzel Dumfries, Dzeko, fine, although not exactly. Maybe not exactly the same quality as Lukaku and Hakimi, as well as Hakan Çalhanoğlu, goal and an assist on his first day at Inter Milan. That's going to make some AC Milan fans pretty sad as well. Atalanta Bologna kick things off on Saturday. Then you have Lazio Spezia, Fiorentina Torino, Juventus versus Empoli. Again, potentially without Ronaldo. The sure thing is not going to be available for that match anyway. Reports suggesting that he is telling his teammates in training that he's going to be leaving. Genoa versus Napoli. Napoli, who started also in a decent way against Venezia. A comfortable 2-0 victory. Sassuolo against Sampdoria on Sunday as well. Milan facing Cagliari after a tough start against Sampdoria, a 1-0 win thanks to Brahim Diaz's goal. And then you have Roma under Jose Mourinho facing the newly promoted Salernitana. And why I'm saying this is because I have my Tunisian, of course, player, my Tunisian mate, the son of my country. I'm supporting him there. Wajdi Kshrid, the young wing back, the right wing back for Salernitana. I'm supporting him there, and he had a decent game in the first one against Cagliari in the loss 3-2. Of course, they were leading actually Salernitana at a certain point of the game, and they almost won, but Cagliari managed to turn things around with Salernitana losing a player late in the game. I hope he performs well. I hope he starts against Mourinho's Roma. I think it's going to be a great test for him, a great test for Roma as well. He's going to have a pretty fierce battle down that left-hand side. Whichever winger he ends up facing is going to be a really, really good battle for him personally. So overall, the biggest questions I think in Serie A are about three teams. Juventus, obviously, without Ronaldo, how they're going to be doing, with the Massimiliano Allegri project going full swing really in Juventus, and with the addition of Locatelli to that club, it definitely looked like maybe a decent season for Juventus is on the horizon, at least for Serie A. A transitional season, yes, but wasn't the last one a transitional season with Pirlo on the helm, and they ended up sacking him and bringing back Allegri. It's going to be probably one of the most forgettable stints of a manager of all time for Andrea Pirlo. Yes, he won them the Coppa Italia and the Super Cup, but still the biggest achievements, the biggest objectives he didn't really achieve, so he's not going to be as well remembered as some of the coaches, likes of Conte and Allegri himself in his first stint at the club as well. Inter Milan, I think the first game might give a lot of positive signals, but still the season is pretty long. The games are going to be pretty hard in a couple of in a couple of stretches. I'm looking forward to Atalanta. I still want Atalanta to compete for the title strongly this season, not unlike the last couple of seasons where they sort of dropped the ball in the last hurdles. I really want them to compete for the title this season, and I want to see some intense football in Serie A. Obviously, the only way to do it in my region is to watch through the YouTube channel of Serie A, which is good and bad in a way. Their coverage is not that good, doesn't give you the excitement that you want for Serie A, but also that's your only source, and that's a free source as well, so it's not so there's no real complaints about this anyway. To round things off, let's talk about the Bundesliga as well. The start of the season was last week, of course. There was a couple of DFB Pokal fixtures played in the week before that as well. There was Bayern Munich versus Bremer SV, the dozen goals in the midweek as well. A result that might give me hope for the season, but I still have my worries about Bayern Munich as well. Match day 3 in the Bundesliga kicks off on Friday. Borussia Dortmund, who had a pretty shaky start for the season after the win against Frankfurt 5-2 in the first game week, they managed to lose against Freiburg 2-1. A pretty horrendous performance by all standards. Again, the defensive frailties are not exactly helping their case in being a title challenger for the season. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really see them as title challengers if they continue the same way. Yes, they're exciting going forward. Yes, they're going to score a lot of goals. Of course, they have Haaland in front, who's going to back them a bunch of goals, and it's going to be a fierce competition between him and Lewandowski for the top scorer for the season. But definitely, the defense for Dortmund doesn't really give them much security that they need to challenge for the trophies and to go the distance in the season in the Bundesliga. Stuttgart kicked things off against Freiburg, the team that beat Dortmund last week. On Saturday, Stuttgart, first result was decent against Greuther Fürth. Then they managed to get dropped the week after. Mainz facing Greuther Fürth, promoted from the Bundesliga, second Bundesliga. Augsburg faced Bayern Leverkusen, a decent start from Leverkusen for the season. Beat Mönchengladbach in the first week of the season. Arminia Bielefeld facing Eintracht Frankfurt. Köln facing VfB Bochum, and I want to really make a quick point about Köln as well. Elias Skhiri is apparently linked to Milan, maybe? Is it really a real link after all the drama we saw about him in the summer? Being linked to so many teams, to West Ham, to Sevilla, to Lyon. In the end, the Köln board apparently didn't find him a suitable offer. And of course, Bayern München on Saturday afternoon is going to be facing Hertha Berlin. A game that should be tricky for Bayern. The first game on home against Köln was tricky in its own right, and Bayern almost dropped the ball in that game if it wasn't for the third goal from Gnabry. The draw against Mönchengladbach didn't fill me up with hope. Already 3 goals in the first couple of games. That's not a good sign for the defensive part of things. Lewandowski's still scoring. They scored a dozen goals against Bremer in the Cup, so you still have hope. You can still see the talent of the likes of Musiala. You can still... Josip Stanisic is a pretty good exploit, I would say, on the right side. I definitely think he should be the number 1 right back. I don't believe in Buena Sarr whatsoever. Kimmich and Goretzka renewing the contract is a good thing as well. So Bayern are a mixed bag at the moment. There's the good vibes and there's the bad vibes. There's the good aspects of the Bayern game and the bad aspects of the Bayern game. David Upamecano still doesn't look that great, although he had a terrific game in the Super Cup against Dortmund. I still have my doubts about Alphonso Davies since the second half of last season. He still didn't return to his best form that we saw him since he burst onto the scene in 2019. And of course, up front, if it doesn't come from Lewandowski, it doesn't come from anyone pretty much. Sane and Gnabry, I'm still waiting for them to hit their full potential. The Sabitzer deal apparently fell in water, didn't go through, unless we still have like 4 days in the transfer window or whatever. So we're going to be waiting what is going to be happening for Bayern Munich for their season. I'm going to hold my horses. I'm not going to say that they're a top contender for the Champions League or anything like that. I think they will win the Bundesliga. It's not going to be as easy, but definitely will win the Bundesliga for the 10th time, and that's going to be quite the achievement as well for Julian Nagelsmann, who won his first piece of silverware with Bayern, beating Dortmund in the Super Cup in a convincing fashion, I would say, in that game. On Sunday, Union Berlin versus Borussia Mönchengladbach. Borussia Mönchengladbach starting the new transition from the Marco Rose era at the club to the Adi Hütter era in the Borussia Mönchengladbach deck. Union Berlin as well are going to be playing in the Conference League. How is that going to affect them? How is it going to affect their sort of commitments between the league and the Conference League? And then, of course, on Sunday, it's a big game. It's a meaty one. Wolfsburg versus Leipzig, both Champions League sides. Wolfsburg have been drawn in a pretty good group. Lille, Sevilla, Salzburg. I think they have the potential to go through to the round of 16. Leipzig, however, have been drawn with the finalist and the semi-finalist of the finalists of the last 2 tournaments of the Champions League in City and PSG, and 2 teams who obviously have the advantage over Leipzig in terms of the Champions League, and definitely with the losses that they have, with Julian Nagelsmann gone, David Upamecano gone, Ibrahima Konate gone, almost the potential of Sabitzer also going from the club as well. Definitely, it's a different season, but they also added the likes of Patson Daka, Szoboszlai returning after spending a season on the shelf. Coming from Salzburg, he's finding his form. He scored in the first couple of games for Leipzig. He scored against Stuttgart last Friday in the drubbing that they gave them 4-0. He scored a beautiful couple of goals for the club as well. So definitely all the signs. I mean, the past is looking bad for Leipzig, but the future might look brilliant as well this season if they want to mount a real challenge against a side in Wolfsburg that still have the same squad of last season, and they still pretty much have the same form of last season. If they manage to replicate it, we're going to see a real title challenge on our hands. Thankfully for watching, that's the end of the podcast episode. Thank you for watching. I was with HOD of the BSB. Like, share, subscribe, help us overtake that 1K threshold. Thank you for reaching that over the last season, as I mentioned, and hopefully for more this season. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, the links in the description. As I mentioned, the usernames on the screen as well, and you have Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. You can listen there as well, and goodbye.